Hello, my name is Jasmine McDonald. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I post ballet and fitness related videos every single Tuesday, Thursday, and now Sunday. And if you're also new here, hello, you may as well hit subscribe. Today's video, I'm going to be telling you guys a little bit about my journey with injury, how I recovered from injuries, and stick around till the end because I'm going to be telling you guys what I learned the most from all of my injuries. Now, as a professional ballerina, I get a lot of questions like, how harsh was it on your body? How did you survive? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be telling you guys right now, I sustained 3 major stress fractures in my professional career. We gotta wind it back a little bit. I told you guys before many times that I went to Canada's National Ballet School from the time I was 14 until I was 20 or 19. I got my first job in Semper Opera Dresden. So between that time, I had no injuries in ballet school. Totally fine. I do have a little story time on why I quit ballet and how I got into it, and I'll put it in the link in my description down below if you want to learn more about that. But I also opened up in one of my more recent videos, which I'll also put in the link down below, about my struggles with body image. Now, huge trigger warning before I talk about anything. I will be talking about body image. I was in high school, I did struggle with my body image. If you are struggling right now, definitely reach out to a therapist or a teacher, somebody who can support you by all means, and I'll put some resources down below. Anyways, because I struggle with that, I put on a significant amount of weight on my body very, very rapidly, which I had to because it was survival and completely necessary, which was a good thing. I gained a lot of my health back, but because of that, I didn't change my training schedule. I actually sustained a stress fracture on my ankle, specifically my calcaneus, which is my heel bone. And I remember I danced on it for a few weeks. I was walking on it, no problem. I did a show on it, and I thought it was just like a tendon or something. So I was technically in the post-secondary program. I didn't get an injury from the time I was in high school, but as soon as I graduated, I put on a little bit of weight. And I didn't change my training schedule. It was just a lot of pressure on my joints. I was working very, very, very hard. I didn't give my body a chance to rest. I didn't allow rest and recuperation after such a significant change in my body. I had that stress fracture, and I think I danced on it for 2 or 3 months, and I was like hobbling around. I thought it was a tendon injury. I thought it was just like, I don't know, a sprain or something, but it wasn't going away. It was getting worse. I thought it was getting better. I thought, oh, I warm up and it gets better. Nuh-uh, sis. So my studio, or at least not my studio, sorry, my dance academy or Canada's National Ballet School set me up with an amazing doctor in Toronto who treats like huge baseball players. Like, he treats Toronto Maple Leafs, he treats like NHL players. Like, he's amazing. So he looked at me, he's like, we're getting you an MRI. I don't want to freak you out, but it's probably a stress fracture. And as soon as you hear stress fracture as a ballerina or as a dancer, you're like, because you know how long that takes to get back from. You know it takes months to get back, and you can't do anything about a fracture. If you've ever had a fracture before, if you've ever had a broken bone, you know you cannot do physio to heal it. You just have to rest, and that's the one thing I did not want to do. I just came back rejuvenated. I felt confident, ready for auditions because I was hoping to get a job that year. I did not want to rest. I had to. So I took 6 weeks off dance, back, and it was totally fine. 2 weeks later, it started to hurt again, and I went for the MRI. They said, nah, still not healed. You fractured it pretty bad. You gotta rest again. And now this time, we don't trust you. We're gonna give you a boot. So I actually wore one of those air boots, I guess. What are they called? The casts? Air casts for 8 weeks. It was supposed to be 6 weeks only. My doctor was actually on vacation for 2 extra weeks in March, which was fine because I probably needed the extra rest. But at the same time, I was like, gosh, can I just get this thing off? I actually ended up going to prom in it, which I'll have to find photos of that because that's pretty funny. I have like a boot on one side and the prom dress that I was wearing. My school didn't have prom, but I went with somebody, and the dress that I had on was like this white dress, but it had a huge like Angelina Jolie moment lit on the left side, which was actually where my boot ended up being. So I wore like one heel, one air cast to prom, which was super funny. Anyways, fast forward, I took the air cast off and it was totally fine. I still had to do some physio for the tendons and the ligaments because they had been strained and pulled a little bit during the stress fracture and during the swelling process. But that was when I was 19 years old. I had a stress fracture in my calcaneus, and it's still swollen to this day actually. Here, this part, you can see it's like a little ball right there. It's always going to be like that. I don't know if it's calcified bone on top. Apparently when you, I'm not a doctor by the way or anything, but apparently when you come back from an injury, your bone is stronger. Like if you come back from a fracture or a stress fracture, it comes back stronger when it repairs itself, which is kind of cool. It's just your body's way of protecting itself from the future. That's good. That one I never had problems with. Actually went on auditions after that and it was totally fine. I had no problems on that ankle. It came back here and there and I was really nervous. I was like, oh my God. Turns out it was just the tendons and the ligaments being pushed because it started to swell again after. There was kind of like the bone had healed because they did a third MRI actually, and they said it's completely healed, but you still might have swelling because that's just your body's way of reacting. So that was a injury I dealt with for a year and a half, which was huge because I obviously just graduated and all I wanted to do was get a job. So I actually got a job when I was 19 or 20, which is pretty late in the ballet world. Most dancers get their jobs at 17 or 18, fresh out of school, but obviously with an injury that was really difficult to do. So fast forward a couple of years, I sustained, I'm trying to think of my next injury. My next biggest injury actually was when I was in Bucharest, Romania National Opera. And that one wasn't actually that bad. It was just bursitis, but it did require me to be off of my foot for I'd say like 8 weeks, the rest of the season, because there's no sense in throwing me in one of the shows when I was just slowly getting back. So I just took the rest of the season off. It was May of 2018, I believe. I got injured right after, very similar. I was overtraining, I didn't have enough time to rest, and it was swollen, it was hurting. Turns out I had bursitis on my right heel, and it felt very similar to my stress fracture. So at first I was like, oh my God, not again. Like freaking out, but it turned out just to be bursitis, and I got over that injury just with rest. Now the next injury the year after, I actually had a pretty significant one that came back twice, so I'll tell the full story from it. So leading up to shows, I was working tirelessly, like 60 hours a week, because we had shows back to back. We had Nutcracker that season, that was a premiere. We had another premiere the season before, and I think in the summer, because I had some time off from my last injury, I felt guilty about not dancing, and I felt nervous and stressed that I wasn't gonna be back into the physical shape, not physically, but like have the stamina. So I went to the gym every single day. I didn't really have a day off, and I was trying to prep myself shows again, which was a really unhealthy thing to do because I did not allow for time to rest in between that. But I figured in my head, okay, I had lots of time to rest during my injury, but no, like you still need rest even if you're completely 100% healthy and you're just getting back from injury, even more so. So I worked for like 9 months straight, no break, not even like a couple of days off. I think even in the off time, it was actually that season that I did a tour to Vienna and to BC, and I was dancing throughout the Christmas holiday. And usually dancers have like a week or two off after Nutcracker shows or in between them, just to give their bodies a break, because Nutcracker is a huge thing. Ballet is very strenuous on the body, so there's always like 1 week of a break at some point. But I didn't take that off because I, got a little bit greedy and I wanted more money. I wanted a job and I wanted more experience and exposure. So I didn't have any time off, and it was during a time where I was rehearsing a soloist part, 2 soloist parts, and a new ballet. We were learning a new ballet, so I was very stressed, and I wasn't taking care of my body because I was going from one show to the next, waking up late because I was up late the night before from a show, and then going out with my friends, grabbing dinner to celebrate, home, and then not sleeping very well. So I started having a little bit of back pain. It wasn't that bad. And then I went bike riding with my friends on a Sunday off or a Monday off. I hit a tree. I'm not the best bike person. I suck at bicycling. So I was going, and then there's a kid coming towards me, and I was like, okay, I either hit the kid at full speed or hit the tree. I opted for the tree, obviously. I don't want to run over a child. So I ran to the tree. The bike slammed into my leg. It jammed up into my hip, and my leg went across like this into the tree, and the bike hit it. And I had a huge bruise the next day. The next day I was like, oh, my leg feels really funny. And I remember it was during Swan Lake. I was standing on it for a while on that side. And then the next morning when I woke up, I could not move. When I put pressure on my leg, I was like, oh, I felt like something was wrong in my hip, whether that was like the tendon being pulled or something, but it was very deep within my hip. And it was also in my back and also on my leg. And that was scary because I was like, oh my gosh, I know my femur bone's there. Did I break it when I was biking? Long story short, I did shows on it. I did Swan Lake on it. Like, I don't know how I did that because it was so painful. I was rehearsing for Le Baider. I did a show on it in Le Baider. Aida, I did a lot of shows on that leg. I ended up getting an MRI. So this is like my 4th MRI in my life. I got an MRI. Well, first I got an x-ray, and they didn't see any problems, but they did see swelling around the top of my femur. They thought, okay, when we look at the x-ray, you actually have very narrow like hip sockets. So for ballet, this also applies for people who want to get their middle splits and want to have more external rotation in other sports. But for a lot of sports and dance in particular, you have to be able to turn out your legs, have a wide range of movement within your hips. And because my hip sockets were pretty narrow in comparison to my femur, think of this as my femur, this is my hip sockets, it was getting jammed every time I would turn out, and the top of the femur would hit like this. So he was like, you definitely might have arthritis, which means your dance career is probably could bit short. I had to get surgery. I went into a state of panic then. That isn't the last thing you want to hear. So I went to the MRI the next day. Turns out it was a stress fracture, which was a good thing and a bad thing. Because again, stress fracture is something you don't want to hear as a dancer. And I was like, oh, another stress fracture. Are you kidding me? And I called my mom and she was sad. She's like, oh no, are you kidding me? I know how hard it was for you to get back from the last one. And it was so stressful for you and awful. I was crying. At least it was just a stress fracture. I took 8 weeks off and I came back and it was fine. The first month I was actually bedridden because I wasn't allowed to put weight onto that leg. Yeah, I also figured out I had been turning out my legs wrong. The whole time that I was dancing, I had been forcing my turnout, especially in a company where everybody had to look the same and they were very strict on how turned out you were. And it wasn't necessarily the way like turn out from the top of your hips. It was like, no, you're facing me. You're all in a line. Your heels have to be facing me. So I was turning out the complete wrong way for my body and thus putting a lot of pressure there. And then the bike actually set my femur bone in and that's where it cracked, at least. I have to find some pictures because I definitely have some. But yeah, that injury took me 8 weeks to get back from, actually 12 weeks, because the first 4 weeks, the first month I was bedridden. And then when I started to stand up, it didn't really go away. And I took another 4 weeks. And then 12 weeks later was the summer holiday and I completely felt fine. That's actually when I met Steven. We started dating. And then I moved back here, as you guys know. Final and last injury. Can you guys guess it? Not a stress fracture. Not a stress fracture, but a stress reaction on the other hip, because what? I wasn't turning out correctly and I rushed into dancing, no break and no sleep. I wasn't taking care of my body, and yeah, I had another stress reaction on the exact same hip, mostly because I wasn't turning out correctly, and ballet was really harsh on my body in that way because I wasn't doing it properly for my body and strengthening my glutes and opening up my hip flexor and strengthening my hamstrings to allow for me to stand on the leg turned out rather than sit into my bony structure. But yeah, I had a stress reaction in my right hip right after I came back, and I was dancing in NBS again and taking classes and auditioning for like Ballet Yorgan and BLC, all these places. And yeah, I couldn't do the auditions because I had a stress reaction again. I was hobbling around. Steve was telling me to go see the doctor for the longest time. Guys, don't do this. Learn from my mistake. Go see the doctor when somebody tells you hobbling around isn't a normal thing and you have to go see the doctor. Because I did not. And that brings me to my final point today. I learned from my mistakes that you have to listen to your body no matter what pressure you have, no matter what pressure people put on you, no matter what expectations you have of yourself or expectations other people have of you. Because in my own head, I was like, okay, I just moved to a new country, or my old country, I guess, because I moved from my previous job in Romania National Opera back to Canada. And I was like, I need to have a job lined up because if I don't, I'm a failure. In that mindset already, I was stressed and putting that pressure on myself when I clearly wasn't ready because I just got back from a stress fracture and I'm traveling and moving and had a highly stressful situation. And I got back into it without rest. That was not the right mindset to have. So I learned to take care of my body, listen to my body, and not listen to anybody else's expectations, including my own, if they're way too high and they're not realistic. That's the first takeaway. The second takeaway was drinking lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of water, because hydrated muscles are happy muscles and help prevent you from injuries. Why are muscles around there? To support our joints and bones. Duh. And conditioning my body. Even in the off time, like, I know I say you need rest, but that doesn't mean like just lay there and then jump into class with no warm up, no prior conditioning the week before going to full classes again. That's something I would have changed in my past. And if I were to talk to my past self, I would say definitely keep up your conditioning. Your off time, if you're going to take a few weeks off, take those few weeks off. But the week before you go back to dancing fully, go slowly back into classes. Don't push it. Like, I remember I'd go straight into classes after coming off a flight with like 3 or 2 hours of sleep and literally do a full class with pointe shoes and like 32 days, like do the whole thing, not easing into it. And that's when you get injured. So absolutely conditioning your body before doing anything huge. Really taking those baby steps, easing back into things too. When I was injured, I felt so guilty about not dancing because I think there's a huge identity crisis with dancers in that it's your whole life, right? You dedicate your life to the art form, your social life to the art form. You dedicate literally everything to the art form. So when it's taken away from you because of injury or you have to take time off, when you have that time off, you feel guilty. So when you go back to it, you need to like amp it up, you feel like, and that's not the case. You need to ease into it, to be easy with yourself and listen to your body, know your body best. So those are all the takeaways that I learned from my injuries. Also learned things from injuries. I learned that I was not standing on a turned out leg correctly. I was not turning out or initiating my turnout correctly. And I was not properly conditioned and I wasn't strong enough. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry I rambled for a very, very long time. Let me know in the comments down below if you've had injuries and how you got back from them, if you learned anything from them. I learned a lot. You can also find other hobbies while you're injured. You don't have to just sit and be sad, right? There's a lot of things that you can do while you're injured. Let me know in the comments down below what you learned and if you like this video and if you like this casual setup. And I'll see you guys another time. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and